Welcome, I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. From our BizVision studios in the UK, you're watching the Leadership Matters show on the BVTV network. Since March, the start of lockdown in the UK, I've zoomed around the world meeting over 250 leaders for BVTV. But today, I don't need my virtual passport as I'm closer to home for my guest. I feel this interview is going to be an evergreen one in that you'll watch many times and share it. I say that confidently because my guest has forgotten more about business than I'll ever learn. To my more mature viewers and listeners, you'll instantly recognize him and his name. To my younger viewers, this is the person you've always wanted as your mentor. Business books are great, and I've got many, but you can't beat real-world learning from someone who's been there and has that real-world experience. Okay, I heard you. Get on with it, Malcolm. So let's give a warm welcome to Bill Midgley. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Good morning, Malcolm. Delighted to join you this morning.
Excellent. And we are so close. I've never been so close. You're 30 miles away. If
15 miles at the most, I think.
Yeah, yes, it's fantastic.
Just down the road, yes.
I'm usually getting jet lag all over the country, over the world. But Bill, I met you at many points in my life and many places: Newcastle Building Society, your Newcastle Journal column, Chambers of Commerce, Durham Cricket Club. But for viewers and listeners across the world, please give us a brief review of who you are and what you've done.
Well, I would state the name, go way back to my early working days. I left school, didn't go to university. I went in later life, but left at A-level stage and went and joined what was then the Midland Bank, long disappeared into HSBC, and spent a number of years into my early 20s in banking. I got to my early 20s to a reasonable level within the bank, and decided that the pay was appalling. The system then of paying people by age rather than ability, or the job that you were doing was not for me. I moved over to building societies and spent the rest of my working life in building societies, the provincial building society now long gone, and the Gateway now long gone, and joined the Newcastle, ultimately as chief executive of that organisation. So I spent 20 years with the Newcastle, then a medium-sized society, now still existing, one of the largest societies still existing. So really my world has been in finance, or the working life, or most of the paid life has been in finance since retirement. And I did 20 years and decided that was it. I was told that 10 years is the maximum you should stay as a chief executive. Good advice. It was actually given to me by a former chief executive of the Abbey National, a chap called Clive Rowlands. Went on to become the chief executive of the Mirror Group before he was thrown out of that, unfortunately, role. But it was right in terms of the 10 years, because I think you start to lose just a bit of the fire, the initiative, and the excitement of the job. It's probably not as noticeable in others, but you realise yourself sometimes that that fire is perhaps a little dim. But I wanted to move on, I wanted to do other things at an age where I could do other things. Since when I've been chairman and non-executive director of quite a number of companies, quite involved in charities. I took on the role as the president of the North East Chamber of Commerce, and subsequently 2 years as the national president of British Chambers of Commerce. A couple of years as vice president of Eurochambre, which was quite interesting to me because my life had been very much UK orientated, and I spent 2 years in travelling to and from Brussels and seeing what went on, or perhaps more importantly, didn't go on there, and trying to learn how the EU worked at that time, the politics of the EU and the administration of the EU. And the charitable work has continued, and the part-time directorships have continued really right until the current day. And only these past 3 or 4 months, I've got roped into as the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee of a charity in the North East of England, a £45 million charity. So I'm still getting my hands dirty, shall we say. Right. But I believe in that. I've always done something. I've had the advantage that since I left the big job, as I tend to call it, the building society, of doing what I wanted. Some things have worked, some haven't, and you've got the great advantage of being able to walk away hopefully with some dignity at the time, but say this is not for me, and practice we're not right together. But make sure that you've got something to do all the time. There's going to be a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And I find that a lot of people retire, and people who work for me decide that we'll sit back, we'll see what comes along. I'll do nothing for 6 months. And I've said to those people, if you take that attitude, you'll never do anything again. And I've seen people go into a slow demise. I've seen people die within a year of retirement. Now, they may have been ill when they retired, but I think part and parcel of it is the fact they've stopped using their head, they've stopped thinking, they haven't got that motivation, and they're just going to a slow decline. So I think there's a message, really, I think, in that to never, ever stop doing something. Have a motive in life. Why are you going to get up tomorrow morning?
I quite agree with you. And sadly, one of my friends that you will have met when I had my charter industry marketing days there, he did exactly that. And now he's got dementia, and he stopped challenging his brain. Now, most people, Bill, say we're in an unprecedented time. And yes, coronavirus has not been here before, but we've had many other crises in both our lifetimes. Do you think we are all guilty of not learning from one crisis to another? Are we in the UK poor at crisis management?
Yes, is the short answer. We have a very short-term memory. I'm old enough to remember coming out of the Second World War. I was born in the middle of the Second World War, but the hard times of the late 40s, but really the early 50s, when you really started to take notice, we came out of that. I think we did quite a good job of coming out of it. The difference between 1950 and 1960 in terms of the quality of life of the population was quite amazing. But we seem to forget that took hard work. And I think somewhere along the line, we've lost that ability to go through painful times. I think there are also some direct comparisons with the coronavirus. We tend to forget I think it was 1958, there was a flu epidemic which killed about 15,000 people in this country. All right. COVID's a little worse than that. But the Asian flu epidemic of 1968, 1969 killed about 50,000 people in this country. Now, 50 years is a long time to many people, but it's not long in the life of a country. And what did we learn from that? And surely we're not naive enough to believe as a country that epidemics don't come time after time. Go back 100 years to 1919 with Asian flu, which killed more people than were killed in the First World War. So there are cycles of epidemics. And I don't see where the preparation was for this. You can argue about some of the quality of the PPE material that was provided, but it was all reactive. That's the impression coming through. I'm not close enough now to make any great comment on whether I'm right or wrong. But my impression, and I think the impression of a lot of people, is that we haven't planned, we've been reactive, we've panicked, we've listened to worst case scenarios, we haven't thought through what perhaps alternative scenarios may be, as a result of which we still don't know where we're going. A lot of business is in turmoil and chaos. And I don't know how long it's going to take to pay for this. I am quite concerned about the impact upon the economy and where we go from here. There are some quite alarming implications. Some may not happen, depends on the action taken by governments and by chancellors. But if they get this wrong, then I'm concerned about my grandchildren in particular, what sort of economy this country will have.
Yeah, we're the same. My wife Kim and I, 4 grandchildren, worrying about their future. And it's actually very interesting what you've said, because I recently interviewed Rebecca Costa, who is an American futurist. She advised Steve Jobs at Apple and things like that. And in a book, On the Edge, she says, you can't do fast adaptation. You should do pre-adaptation. You know it's going to happen, so do something about it. You know, as you say, there's a cycle. Now, I hinted in my opening piece of the value of an older, experienced person. I call them gravitars. You know, next step up from gravitas. Working on mentoring with a young entrepreneur. I believe such a relationship can help a business accelerate its success. Do you agree? And if so, why do you think it works?
At the head of this, I'll say yes. I agree. I agree because those people my age who've been involved in business, and perhaps a number of businesses, developed a great deal of experience, and others can learn from that. throughout life, we learn from experience. We do forget that from school, we learn from experience. From university, colleges, we learn from experience. We learn from the experience of parents and mentors all of the time. But it would appear that there's a cut-off in this country that once you get to an age, then your experience is out of date, that you stop learning. And there's nothing to pass on. The young are still learning. It's new ideas. The ideas of yesteryear don't have any effect on business today, which is totally wrong, because the basics of business are as they were 50 years ago, probably 100 years ago. And importantly, what I find is what we don't learn, or business doesn't learn at the moment, what we can pass on are the mistakes that we've all made, and that people have made, and businesses have made. Some years ago, I used to talk to Common Purpose about, they used to have various days on business days and look at the society in general around the region. I remember asking them, where have you been today? And they rattled off a number of top companies in the northeast of England, all big successes. So where's the failure in that? And all I got was blank stare. So, well, there are some companies that don't make it. Why don't they make it? Because you need to know, as you're the future leaders of business, why companies have failed, so that you don't make those pitfalls. So it's the positive that you've learned in business, but it's also the negative side. Avoid that. It's a bad day today, isn't it? Because we just find that two companies are in major problems. Are there lessons to be learned from that? Or do we roll on again until the next one happens? But learning about failure is important as learning about success, because what you don't want in your business is failure.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I point that out, by the way. I've got 3 full volumes of Malcolm Gallagher failures. But when I'm in America, they will talk to me about their failure and how, I won it, lost it, and that sort of thing. Here, we're ashamed. We think that if we failed, we're doomed forever. That shouldn't be. We'll come back to that one later on, though. What's your thoughts on the immediate future for the UK with Brexit in the mix, deal or no deal, and uncertainty likely continue into 2021? Yeah. Where should businesses be focusing their priorities?
Very difficult for businesses acting in a period of uncertainty. It's the uncertainty, whether you're pro or anti-Brexit. We've got to live with where we are, what we've got, but the uncertainty doesn't allow us to do that. Once we know where we're going, then businesses can start making decisions. At the moment, I think businesses have to assume that we'll be out. Well, we are out, but with some sort of deal, but probably not advantageous to all the businesses. I think businesses need to think of the supply lines in particular. Small businesses say, it doesn't affect me, does it? Because I only sell in the high street, I only sell in the UK. I asked my own daughter, so where's the raw material coming from? Stop and think, well, have you protected that line? Do you know it's going to be there in January or July of next year? So think through the whole business, how we're all going to be affected. I think the message is, whatever you think about Europe, doing nothing is not an answer. You've got to work through what your business is, how it's going to be affected. Think wider, as I said, the supply chain, but the other implications, what you have to do with your staff, what's the implication of the changes in legislation on you. We talked about being reactive before in terms of COVID. Make sure that too many businesses aren't reactive on the 2nd of January when they start up again and then panic. But I go back to the point, this is the problem of uncertainty. We run this to the last possible minute. And I hear all of the stories about this is the way that Europe deals with. Whenever we negotiate with Europe, it goes to the last possible minute. But this is far more important than what we've done before. And really, businesses, as they should be thinking this morning, now, where do we go? Deal, no deal, whatever. It will still have an impact on your business. Prepare for it, think it through, and make sure that you've got your strategy in place for the 2nd of January.
Well said, Bill. Well, far too many haven't even thought it through. Now, I personally believe that some new leader skills, such as remote leadership, will be needed in the future, but the fundamentals of leadership will continue. What's your personal thoughts on what makes a modern, effective leader, one fit for the future?
Yeah. I think understanding the business and understanding the people. I like to think I'm a great people person. And when I say that, that's not being popular. People go for popularity. It's not that. It's understanding what motivates people and try to get across to people what their value is to the business. The biggest single asset we have in any business is the people. Talk to some people and ask what their biggest asset is. It may be this IT system, which has just cost £5 million or whatever. It's actually the people that are in the business. And I think if you can get across to people, get across to your staff that they make the business or they destroy the business, they are the business, then you'll carry them with you and they'll look to you for leadership. I think they'll accept where you're trying to take them. But you've got to do that with impressing people that you understand them, that you're alongside them, and that you care for them and that you value them. And it's not just about cash. People tend to think, well, give me a bonus, that's fine. It's a lot more. It's a lot more than that. So that investment that you make in people is crucial. That will pay you back. That, I think, will make you a good leader.
Yeah, I totally agree, Bill. And I'm afraid a lot of new business startups that I've met and so on, the entrepreneurs are starting to regard people as cannon fodder, as the old days. And, they don't even really know their names. Look, you're well schooled in the world of finance. Do you think the UK has a good enough, consistent entrepreneurship culture and support system in place, especially in the area of startup funding? I mean, I've heard recently from one lady CEO in finance in London that 98% of funding goes to male dominated startups and only 2% to women.
I think that's a great pity, because we've seen some very, very successful companies run by women, and it's improving, but it's improving far too slowly than should be the case. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever, male or female. It's the ability of the individual and the concept. What have they got that you are supporting? But I think, going back to your basic question about do we help businesses? Where are we? Do we support entrepreneurship? I think we're very poor at it. And I lay that down to the educational system. Now, as you know, Malcolm, I was chairman of a further education college for a number of years, about 7 years. And I was quite appalled at the lack of support for further education, which is where a lot of the new businesses come from. People tend to think it's from universities. It's not actually. The skills, engineering in particular, and perhaps I would say that in this part of the world, are actually taught in further education colleges, which are the poor relations of education. Now, I don't want to go on a political rant on this, but it is a fact. And there's no facility and there's no cash for educating people in setting up their own businesses, their small businesses. I don't know in this part of the world where the next Sage is coming from. We have a highly successful Sage, which is 25, 30 years, perhaps 30 years old. David Goldman set it up. Huge successful business. But where's the next business now? And there's no encouragement. And the support that such as there is, and there is some support, I can't say it's nil, is in the hands of the wrong people. It's in the hands of the government employees, it's in the hands of the local authorities. And the people that deal with this are not those versed in business. We bogged down by bureaucracy. You must hear, as I do, Malcolm, small business in particular. I want to do this, I want to do that. I can't, who do I speak to? I can't get through. I can't get them to understand what I'm trying to do. And then they've taken through a whole series of bureaucracy where people very often lose the will to continue. And we need people supporting young would-be entrepreneurs who've been down the track, who've run their own businesses, hopefully successfully. They may have failed, as I said earlier, and learn from those failures. And we're not using the skills of people in business as we should be. But there seems to be this barrier that government, whether it be national or local authority government, know better than the people in business. And quite frankly, they don't. They can't run their own businesses, never mind anybody else's.
Excellent. Yeah. Now, here at BizVision, Kim and I are proud to be amongst the world leaders in the conscious agenda. We totally believe that the admired and successful business of tomorrow will be a conscious business led by a conscious leader with conscious marketing, the one with the right planet, people, and profits balance. What's your thoughts on what makes a good conscious leader?
Awareness. It's a more modern thought than I was brought up with. And I think it's a development of what good leaders should always be. Part of what I said before in terms of conscious of the value of your staff, conscious of the world around you, conscious of the contribution that your business can make. Now, I think we all owe something to the world. We can debate forever about global warming, can't we? And I don't know whether it's the world going through one of its cycles, which it does every so many hundreds or thousands of years. What I am concerned, though, is that we're polluting the planet. We're probably eating it to death as well, but we are polluting it. We're leaving behind a terrible legacy for those behind us. And business and the leaders of business have a large part to play in that. They have a responsibility. They have a responsibility. I come back to staff, which is probably a constant theme of mine, about the cares and the concerns and the lifestyle of staff. That it's not just about the hours that you work, the 40 or 50, 60 hours that staff work for you, it's their lives generally. And it's by being conscious, I think you're aware of the steps that you have to take in your business. I come back to being ahead of the game. If you're not conscious of what's happening in the world and of people, then you probably fall behind and you're not taking the steps that you should take at the time you should take them.
Leaders have to make decisions. And one thing that looms over us at the moment is indecision, both in business and in politics. Okay, I understand the need for caution, but sitting on the fence, bifurcating, is not moving forward. How should leaders become more decisive?
Well, learn to make decisions and be prepared to take decisions. I think we've fallen for the team ethos too much. Now, we need teams. But there has to be somebody at the head of that team that's prepared to make the hard decision. There's an analogy in football, isn't it? Who takes the penalty?
Yeah.
We've all seen football matches where 11 players will stand around and decide, well, the opposition goalkeeper goes this way, that way, jumps up and down, whatever he does. But somebody has to stand up there, take that penalty, haven't they, and make that decision. So leaders have got to listen to what people say and they've got to learn from what people say, but ultimately they've got to be prepared to make that decision. I'm the one making that decision. I will take that responsibility. And if the goalkeeper saves it, they've got to be prepared. Well, I got that wrong, didn't I? But next time I won't, because I shall make sure it goes the other way or whatever. But take the decision. And sometimes making hard decisions and getting those across to the people, telling the people, is very hard indeed. And I think the problem with many people today, they want to be liked. So they avoid the hard decision, or they don't get it across as they should. They sugarcoat it, and the message is a little bit mixed. You've really got to say, if hard decisions, you've got to get that across, sometimes quite brutally, but say it. I talked to a group of young people not all that long ago, actually, about decisions. How do you get across? And that's, well, what's the worst thing you've ever had to say to anybody in your life? I think most of us, if not all of us, have got something in our lives which we'd never want to see repeated. We had to face up to it. Now, this is a hard decision. You're going to have to tell a group of people or an individual. Now, is it as hard as that particular moment? And to most people, it's not. Say, well, all right, so what's your problem? What is your problem? And nobody's going to shoot you. Well, unlikely to shoot you by making a hard decision.
Yeah.
But just get your mind focused and fixed in what you've got to say and say it to people. And if it's a decision which is detrimental, then you've got to explain why, justify it, but get it across to people so they understand that.
Brilliant. I particularly like your football analogy. The only problem is in England, we're not very good at taking penalties, are we?
Well, that may be part of our problem with teaching skills, might it?
Yeah. Look, people make profits in my thinking and teams make companies. What's your ideal way of motivating people?
We've touched on some of them. We value them. It's not, well, finance. You can't hide cash. People are motivated by what's in their salary packet. And I was always a great believer in a bonus system. That every year I paid a bonus, remembering that people are paid a salary to do a job. If you introduce a bonus system, then that's for performance over and above what they are paid for. Bonuses are abused at all sorts of levels, at low levels, and at the very highest level, and we see plenty of that in the press. So, yeah, financial motivation. But the value of the individual to the business, I come back to that point. What is your individual value to the business? If you've got 1,000 staff, and you've got to get that across to them, but get across, you must, that you are important. And the business is effectively yours. I think you've got to get across them. They own the business. Just as much as the chairman or the chief executive does, they own the business. And without them, the business cannot be successful. Was it one of the American presidents? This is a bit of an old story, this. It's told by many American presidents. When going back to the 1960s, the space race, it was either Kennedy or Lyndon Johnson, were walking around the space center in Florida. And they've been showing all the usual things. This is the jet, these are the engines, this is the rocket that'll take us to the moon or whatever. And there's a chap sweeping up the bits in the corner, the offcuts or whatever they were. And the president at the time walked over and said, "Well, what are you doing here?" He said, "I'm helping to put men on the moon." Oh, and
brilliant. Yeah.
Everybody has that part to play. Whatever it is, they're part of that organisation.
That's so important. I use the same analogy in a way within hospitality, where the dishwasher says to me, "Well, I'm just a dishwasher." No, you're not. You're fundamental to the customer satisfaction, aren't you? Now, with over 250 plus interviews with business and thought leaders around the world since March, I've had a great overview of some of the key, let's call them slippages that are happening in business. One of them is succession planning, with too many businesses leaving it too late and then ending up cloning themselves. What's your thoughts on succession planning in these times?
Well, the easy answer is it's not easy. For small businesses, for the SME sector, shall we say, it's very difficult to carry a would-be chief executive. It's an expensive operation. And if you're carrying a would-be chief executive for any period of time, and if they're any good, they'll find a job somewhere else. Large organisations can probably plan and can bring in. I think before companies think about succession planning, though, they need to realise where they're going over the next few years. What's their 3 to 5 year plan? Because you expect a new chief executive to be at least that period of time. Perhaps the FTSE companies is 200, but 2 years, by the way, they seem to go these days. But nevertheless, you need to know what that plan is. So you need the chief executive to be able to deliver that plan, the right individual, which may not be a clone of what you have at the present time. And there is that great danger, I agree, that you've had somebody who's successful, and we want somebody exactly like that. So I think it comes down, this is where the board of directors have a responsibility. They don't always show it, but they have to have that responsibility in looking forward and where they think they can take the business. The existing chief executive has a part to play in that. Mm-hmm. Now, getting the individual at the right time is the difficult one. That will vary, and there's no perfect answer, because if you're a team of 20, you're not going to carry somebody in a 6-figure salary or more for any length of time, unless you're a particularly successful business. You may have to realise that you're going out into the marketplace. Then you approach the people, you approach them, just decide what you want. What's your job spec? What's the person spec, more particularly, and get some professional advice and seek out the individual that you require, and make it a very hard search. Don't fall into the trap of too many businesses of appointing the deputy, and that happens far too often. And that's where the cloning often comes.
Yeah, but it's promotion by rote, isn't it? That too much by I know you've got a great interest in education, chairman of Tyne Coast College. Do you think we teach business and entrepreneurship, or even handling money, at an early enough stage in UK education?
No, I think the schools do a little bit in handling money, basic. The teaching entrepreneurship, no. There's no cash for colleges for that. It doesn't happen. I think if you take it up a level, some of the universities are quite good at it. I think some of our local universities are quite good at it. That's fine if you go to university, but over 55% of the population aren't going to university. So there is a void, and they're left to themselves. And again, coming back to what we were talking about, the skills that FE is there to teach, should be extended to how do you start your own businesses, because that's where the next stage will come from that level, from IT skills, from engineering skills, those skills, the skills that the country will need. But the cash support is not there. If it's there, it's a very, very, very small amount. And the attitude of the educational institutions, the schools and that, I've talked to them as chairman of Tymet College and the like, they're more concerned in numbers to university, because the local authorities are exactly the same. How many are going to get to university this year? How many is your school going to get through to university? Well, we are shortchanging our people in the future by not teaching them the skills and how to deliver those skills. That's the entrepreneurship side. How do they deliver those skills to the world at large?
Excellent thinking there. Shortchanging. Let's move into a different zone. What makes for a good NED, non-executive director, in your mind? A friendly critic or what?
I won't use the word friendly. I think no, they don't have to be friendly. I think a constructive critic.
Yes, yeah,
and somebody who gain the respect of the executive team, and also somebody who has a value to the organisation. Far too many non-execs. I've seen this on a number of boards I've sat on over the years, and I'm not talking about the Newcastle Building Society, who still pay me a fair amount each month, but
yeah.
But boards are generally where people are there for a variety of reasons, not least because they know the chairman or they're a name or they have a title or whatever, and the contribution has been nil. So value that the non-exec has to the board, it's going to be a value which is relevant to the organisation, and somebody who's prepared to challenge, not second guess the chief exec, but to challenge and ask questions of where the chief exec or the executive team are taking the organisation. That I've found doesn't happen often enough, and that's how sometimes chief executives become all powerful, and businesses perhaps don't go the way that people expect.
Yeah. My penultimate question, Bill, and almost back to my opening piece, talking about your experience. What are you most proud about what you've achieved in your business career? You know, when you sit back and reflect, what puts that satisfied smile on your face?
Can I mention three things, Malcolm, off the top?
Go on.
Well, one is obviously Newcastle Building Society, because it's still there. If you go back 25, 30 years, went through a period of demutualisation of building societies. We're all under great pressure. Societies that of any size that were worthwhile. Happens with the Northern Rock locally. But it happened with much larger organisations. Abbey National was the largest. Where are they? There's not one society that demutualised that exists. All right, you can see the Halifax name in the High Street, but it's part of the Bank of Scotland. And they all got it wrong. They all went into a business they did not understand. And they forgot. It's the cobbler and his last. They forgot why they were there and the skills needed to survive in a different world. So the fact that under pressure, I have to say, under pressure from a lot of members of the Newcastle Builders at the time who wanted their £1,000 of free shares, we kept it mutual. And I think that was a battle, and it's still there and it's thriving and surviving. That's good. So I think that is a lasting heritage. The other two are rather different, if I may, and they're outside business. One, I was chairman of my working life and beyond that of a fundraising operation for the new Marie Curie Hospice, as it was then in Newcastle. We raised £5.5 million. Wow. And this is a bit, it's an ego trick, really. My name is on the foundation stone because I laid the foundation stone. So forever, while that building lasts, I stand outside there and say, wow, my name is carved in stone somewhere. Yeah. What, not too far down the line, it might be carved in stone somewhere else, but that one was...
well, long time to go, Bill.
That's different. And the third one, and it was a business actually, was Durham County Cricket Club. Now, the business is cricket. Any sporting club of that size runs a business. But the key was introducing Test match cricket to the northeast of England. Now, a lot of people claim that they were the architects of getting Test match cricket to northeast of England. If you look in the minutes of the England Wales Cricket Board and the press at the time, I was the chairman. I know the battle I had to go, the bullying, the cajoling, the blackmailing, I have to say, to get Test match cricket to Durham. And that was a great success at the time, because initially we were the new boys. Nobody wanted to know us. Go away. Don't be a nuisance. There's a story there which I've never written, actually. Others have tried to write it, but I think there are probably some conversations that are best not repeated until whilst the people are still alive, actually. But I'll put that down as a success. I'm delighted to say that, in spite of the problems that Durham County Cricket Club have had in recent years, they have international cricket back next season, assuming we're allowed to play cricket next season.
And you know, if my viewers have never been to Durham County Cricket Club, it's a fabulous setting, is it, with Lumley Castle and all in the background. It really is good. Bill, I like to give all my guests 3 wishes. If I gave you 3 wishes for what today's small and medium-sized businesses should be doing, even in this time of uncertainty, to plan for growth, what would your 3 wishes be?
Never lose sight of your vision. Vision, that comes back to the chief exec, or the owner of the business. Never lose sight of that vision, and cascade that vision through your staff. Make sure that they share that with you. I think that is very important. And refer back to the vision. Whatever you do, refer back to the vision. I'm not saying you shouldn't diversify, but refer back to your vision all the time. Complacency. Never ever sink into complacency. You're as good as last year's figures. I used to tell my staff that. Right down to the branch managers who said, we had a great year. I said, yeah. And how much business have you done on the 2nd of January? You're as good as last year's figures. And I think the last one, and I find this quite alarming, is don't accept mediocrity as the norm. If I have a criticism of my 42 years in the northeast of England, we accept mediocrity far too easily. And we have to rise above that.
Excellent. I am totally in agreement with that last one. Bill Midgley, I knew this was going to be an epic interview. Thank you very much indeed for a great chat. Well,
thank you for tolerating me for 45 minutes. It's been most enjoyable. Thank you.